Welcome to the Ford Piquette Plant. I'm Nancy Darga, the Executive Director. Here is a progress report as we continue to build out the recreated secret experimental room. Right here on the third floor where Henry Ford and his special team invented the Model T. Steve Shotwell, the project director, along with Bob Casey, an auto historian, will discuss the project and bring us up to date as we approach the finish line.
So Bob, we've been working on this project for quite some time. And early on, we had a lot of help from somebody doing some archival discoveries inside of here. Tell us a little bit about that.
A survey was done by a man named Richard Anderson. And Richard Anderson is an industrial archaeologist. A lot of people don't know that there are things called industrial archaeologists. But he came in here, it was several years ago. He came in here and looked at this room, looked at holes in the floor, looked at nail holes on the walls, everything, and using that information that he could see, plus interviews that had been done with people who actually worked here, interviews with people like Charles Sorensen and Joe Galam, and the few photographs that do exist of this building. There's no photographs of this room, unfortunately.
Yep.
He gave us this detailed report which locates where we believe things like the walls were, the configurations of the walls, where the line shaft probably was. We'll never know for certain because there's no photographs. But where the line shaft likely was, where the machine tools were likely located, where the doors were likely located. And based on that, we've then been building this recreation using that foundation that Richard Anderson gave us.
And now we've been exploring inside of the room and we find that very evidence that Richard saw, and Anderson's marks are still on the floor. He put tape down there, and I was able to verify every single one of his marks so I can see exactly what led him to believe the location of walls and the types of walls, etc., that were there. It was really good. One of the things we learned from Anderson is he was making his best efforts to surmise what sort of equipment was inside of this room. And this very line shaft we're working on here today was the central source of powering that equipment, as we've been talking about, has been working. And I believe there were about 4 or 5 pieces of equipment that were pretty well, documented that these were the very likely pieces. Tell us a little bit about those pieces.
We feel pretty confident that they probably had a lathe, a milling machine, a drill press, and perhaps a grinder in here. And none of these were real large tools because they didn't need to make large things. There were machine tools in other parts of the plant that could make large things. Yep. But this would allow them to make things quickly. In those days, you didn't have an individual electric motor on every machine.
Right.
You had one electric motor that powered a central shaft, which is the supports for which we've just put up, and then there would be belts coming off from that shaft going to each machine.
Exactly.
And it wasn't like they were cranking things out daily. They were making one-offs here because every part that they were making was new. It was an experiment, and they might remake the same part several times till they got it precisely the way they wanted it.
So Bob, one of the things we've worked hardest on with this project is trying to make sure the authenticity is at the best level we can possibly make it.
When doing something like this, you try to be as authentic as you can based on what you know, but there's always the caveat is that we don't know everything, and we never will.
Excellent. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that we invite people to come here to Piquette Avenue Plant to be able to see the new secret experimental room, once we're done with it. So we want to make sure that people know that this is a great time to come down and see us.
I think it'll be exciting, and I think that once you see it, you'll get a sense of the excitement that was going on in here and how historic it was. The work that was done in this space that created this technological device, the Ford Model T.
The ubiquitous Model T.
The ubiquitous Model T that changed the world.
Yes, very good. Thanks, Bob.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Steve Shotwell and Bob Casey, for this special behind-the-scene look.